Welcome to Armchair Expert. I'm Dax Shepard. I'm joined by Emmy-nominated Monica Miniature Pad Man. Speaking of the miniaturest mouse and the most Maximus mouse, Monica has her own show coming out. So exciting. It's such a good idea, and it's already so tasty and yummy. And I participate, and Mommy participates.
That's right. So it's 10 episodes. It's still an armchair show, so don't worry.
Don't worry. But it's called Monica and Jess Love Boys.
That's right. There's more to it than us just loving boys.
There is.
It's about relationships and dating because Jess is gay and he overdates sort of unequivocally. So
Sure. Objectively, he's a heavy dater.
He dates sometimes 10 to 15 a week.
Sure.
And I am straight and have the opposite issue. I serially underdate.
Yes. It would appear, at least on the surface, although we may discover with all the experts that come in, that they're opposite problems. But again, we don't know.
Exactly. That's what's been really interesting is, we're coming at it from sort of opposite points of view, but, everything ends up being pretty universal.
And there's challenges.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have experts on. We have the armchair expert himself on the first episode, and we have our mother, Kristen Bell, on. We have really, really fun experts like Dr. Drew and Dr. Alex, who we had on this show, and Millionaire Matchmakers coming on.
God, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's really been fascinating. But so at the end, we get a challenge from our expert or our guest, like an assignment for the next week so that we can break some of these patterns we're in. Yes, because the whole goal is, just like on this show, we talk about all of our shit, but the goal is to not just talk about it, but make changes.
Get into action.
Exactly. So they've been really scary and fun, and we're really learning. It's been great.
And it comes out on, very easy to remember, on Valentine's Day, which will be our 2-year anniversary.
That's right.
And it's also a day of lovers.
That's
and that's what the topic that's being explored. So it'll come out on February 14th, which is Valentine's Day generally.
Which is a
Friday. And then it'll be every Wednesday for 10 weeks.
Yeah. And if you subscribe to Armchair Expert, you'll get it.
Yes. Now, today's guest is one of the best actors on television, hands down, 3-time Emmy Award winner, not to throw shade, 4-time Golden Globe winner, and 2-time SAG Award winner, Claire Danes. Fell in love with her in Romeo and Juliet. She blew my mind in Temple Grandin. She was in Terminator 3 with the guy. My So-Called Life started it all. And of course, now she's in the 8th and final season of Homeland, which premieres February 9th on Showtime. So please enjoy Claire Danes.
Oh, and actually, this is a good segue because at the very beginning of this episode, I had just come off of a challenge, and we're talking a little bit about it at the top of the episode. So if you're a little confused, we're talking about a Monica and Jess challenge.
Yes. So please enjoy.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
So one of the challenges was to join a dating website?
Oh, gosh.
Like an app.
This is all making me very uncomfortable,
I know.
but I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. It makes me so uncomfortable, too, which is why I'm doing it.
But it's so fun to vicariously live through all of them for Kristen and I.
Yeah.
She's 32. Okay. And her age range was what, 34 to 49?
No, 50.
Was it always 50?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I get that.
Thank you.
I do
He
get
had
that.
a big reaction.
As someone that loves her, at 18 years older, I'm like, hon, you will be with this guy for 5 years and he'll get some kind of terminal disease.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that logic as well, but I don't know. I would cast a broad net.
So we were arguing over whether or not it should be younger or older.
Okay.
And she went and saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes.
And she came back and she's like,
Amazing
I can't have an
movie.
age bracket that excludes Brad Pitt.
He's got to be in there.
Fair point.
So then I was like, I need to raise my
Yes,
limit.
yes.
Actually, my
She went the other way.
You don't know until you go exploring.
Exactly.
Now, you've been with your husband for a long 11 years or something?
We've been married for 10. We've been together for 13.
13?
Yeah.
Okay, so Belle and I are roughly the exact same.
Okay.
Not the marriage part, but the together part.
Okay.
So we live in stagnation. We have children.
Yes.
We're 13 years in. Do you ever, because technology has changed so much, do you ever just play out in your head what life would be like if you were single and you actually were on one of those? Have you ever given that any energy?
I do occasionally. I've been in relationships like from the moment puberty hit, basically. And I was even in way too intense relationships with my girlfriends before then. So I am a relationship creature.
Me too.
And when I had broken up with a boyfriend who I'd been with for 3 years, and when I first met Hugh, we met on a movie called Evening. We met at a rehearsal, and then we kind of disbanded, and we were going to regroup. And during that time where we all went back home, this breakup happened, and I was determined to be single. And I was really excited about it and kind of bragging about it. And I went on a date, with somebody who's actually kind of known but not in the business, so I can't say,
Sure.
And I thought, this is okay. Like, because I've auditioned my whole life. I've been on lots of talk shows. I feign intimacy for a living. So I could disassociate just enough and flirt. And I was
You were playing
so
your part.
relieved, that it was kind of possible. Had one night stand in it. That was it.
And that was the whole thing.
That was it. My palate was cleansed, and then went back and filmed the movie. Realized, oh shit, I think I'm going to marry this person.
Oh, wow.
And the end of my life as a single person was realized.
How quickly into
Actually, that's not quite true. I think I was in staunch denial for a while.
well, you had a whole new game plan.
I had a new game plan. I was like, I already had a one night stand, so I'm flying.
Well, and I don't want any details, but was that in general a satisfying experience? Was it all
It was really fun.
Great.
But then he stopped emailing me. This is when people email. This is like even before texting.
You got mail.
Stop faxing you.
And I was like, oh my God, that's a real thing. Like they have sex with you and they stop being interested in you. Because there was a lot of energy until it happened. And then it was a little disappointing, I gotta say. But whatever, it's fine. Because I was like on to my husband. So we were good.
But did you go into the encounter going, this is my one night stand? So your
that was the spirit that I was in, for sure.
Right. But then after it happened, you're like, well, I could go another round.
But as I said, I am a relationship person. So who was I kidding, really? But so Hugh was going to be like next stop, and then he was just wonderful. So next stop forevermore.
I remember talking to you guys somewhere, but I can't place it.
We were at the big fight. That wasn't called the fight of the century. It wasn't called the big fight.
Pacquiao Mayweather.
Yes, that's right.
That's so weird because this morning, I'm going to give you more details than you need. I was on the can and I was talking to my wife who was in front of the mirror. And I said, hon, we have talked to Claire and her husband. And she goes, that sounds right.
I also remember meeting Kristen at a Showtime thing. And she was very sweet. And she was like a big fan of the show. And she said as much. And I was so... I don't know. I was very flattered, and I was like disarmed by her enthusiasm and her sincerity, and and I'm a big fan too. So
well, we loved. She probably didn't tell you, and you probably don't know this, but do you know you've acted with Kristen?
What?
What? New info?
When Kristen was 13
really?
years old,
Really?
she played a friend of yours with no lines.
In a play or something?
No, in a TV show or a TV movie or something.
Wow. I'm so flattered. That's so cool.
Wow, that's exciting.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I thought her first movie was Pootie Tang.
Well, that was one of her seminal first
That's like
roles.
the new porn star game.
Exactly.
Porn star name game.
So, but anyways, and eventually I said out loud, I said, God, maybe it was at that fight. And then we both concluded, that doesn't feel on brand for you. And then we moved on. I was like, that seems like maybe where it was. But then I was like, I can't imagine she was there.
Yeah. No, I was there. We were excited.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have a history of liking boxing?
No, it was the event.
Yeah.
I'm really scared of boxing.
Violence?
Yeah, violence I'm not particularly good at.
Right.
But, it was...
Very exciting.
It was a big deal at the time.
Well, and okay, so what happened too was Nevins invited Kristen, like, I don't know, a month or two before the fight.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, I don't want to go to fight. She was also filming something in
Yeah.
Atlanta, right? And then later I found out, like a month later, that
This is
she...
the same thing that happened with you and I. Because he invited me and I was like, and then I mentioned in passing to Hugh, very close to the day, I was like, we were invited to that. And he was like, what?
Yes, I almost divorced her over this. Yep.
And I said, oh, that's something you would like to do?
Yeah.
So I made some desperate calls, like, who do I know? Because we could get tickets, but we couldn't get in. We couldn't get a flight in. Because all the flights were booked.
Yeah.
So we scrambled to locate a billionaire.
Oh, right.
I think we called.
Put some feelers out.
Yeah, we called Matt Blank, and he said, "No, my plane is full, but I do have a friend who could carry you over, who happened to be a neighbor from a place we lived in before our place now, and oddly, coincidentally, we did happen to know this billionaire person who was very nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we hitched a ride.
Well, in my case, I just couldn't believe it that she would have turned down those tickets.
Yeah.
And then I flew to see her in Atlanta where she was shooting. And right when I got there, I went into the house and she was like, I love you. So excited you're here. You got to go back to the airport in 4 hours. You have a flight back to Vegas. And I was like, oh my God. And she'd already planned, like, my friend Andrew Panay is going to meet you there and we're going to have this evening, whatever.
Right.
It was great. Here's where I'm getting to the funny part of it for me was
Okay.
I had been once before as a guest of Showtime with Kristen. We went to a different fight and we, by God, were in the first or second row. I mean, you were getting hit with sweat and whatnot.
Right.
So my buddy who I brought, I was like, oh my, wait till you see these Showtime seats, right?
Yeah.
And then they're walking us there and we passed the first few rows where all the actors are and everything. And I guess we're going to be on the backside. I didn't know those were seats too. And now we hang right up the stairs. And then I'm like, we're really climbing these stairs for a while. And I've promised this outrageous seating. We were pretty high up there. And it was hard on the ego for a while. But then I noticed Evander Holyfield was just one row behind us. And I was like, Evander Holyfield's one seat behind us. We're good.
Yeah,
and then we celebrated.
Yeah.
All in on the joke that we were obviously...
No, but it was a real... It was being at court, kind of.
Like a status.
It was.
Yeah.
That was what it was almost all about.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Met Ball was also that same week, and it was a strange exercise in derangement. I mean, just that it was an ego vomit fest.
Yeah.
And it's fun, and it also leaves you feeling pretty twitchy.
It's comforting, though, right, to know that other people there are
Totally.
having the same high school thought of like, am I cool enough to be at this party? Is someone going to pat me on the shoulder?
Yeah, and I've been so lucky to go to most of those things, certainly the last 13 years with my best friend. So that helps a lot.
Yeah, big time.
Because you just have somebody to turn to and go, hey,
Yeah, share it with.
And then occasionally you find an actual friend in the throng of beautiful people.
Yeah.
But it's a little mind bending.
Yeah.
And you do kind of float out of your body and look at it all from the outside in, which is not the most comfortable state to be in.
Right. It really is all for me what my own mental state is. I can go and have the best time ever, or I can go and just feel less than the whole time. And it's really, the experience is pretty static.
It is a performance too. That's what's also confusing about it. And we don't have balls really anymore.
Right.
I think we probably had more of them once upon a time, but where you do parade yourself around and announce yourself in this formal, absurd way. And I mean, I'm not necessarily critical of it because I do keep going back to them.
Right.
Because they're fascinating. And it is amazing to see so many extraordinary people in such a dense environment, concentrated space, at their, most elevated.
Right. They've gone through hair and makeup.
Yeah.
They've have a stylist dress them.
They didn't just wake up that way. And that is interesting.
Do you get to the point, both of you, where you come home and you think like, oh, none of that matters?
Oh,
Or
every
not
time
really?
for me.
Oh, yeah. None of it matters. Exactly. The last one I went to was at the Met Ball, and I was pretty pregnant. And I also happened to be objectively unwell. I was like really sick. I had a fever, and it was and the sickness was getting intensified over the course of the evening. It just becomes like an acid dream, right? But I was already altered in so many ways,
Right.
that weren't enjoyable. But I was sitting opposite Uma Thurman, who I kind of have known over the years, and she's quite warm and friendly. And I was saying, like, I'm really not feeling so well. And so after you have the big dinner, then the musical guest performs. You never know who it's going to be, but everybody kind of knows who it's going to be. Mm-hmm. In this case, it was Madonna. And we were all kind of ushered to another part of the museum, and I was feeling really faint. I just kind of groped my way to some stairs, and there Uma was again with J-Lo and A-Rod. And then the musical act was starting, and of course, Madonna was descending the stairs and was going to land exactly where I was sitting. And so, like, Uma grabbed me. She saw I was looking green, and she kind of, like, dragged me over to the wall with her and J-Lo and A-Rod. And then A-Rod got really excited because he loves Homeland. And so then I was taking a selfie with J-Lo and A-Rod as Madonna was, like, getting closer and closer. And I was just feeling like death. Yeah, so that was my last experience of just like, what is going on?
Well, the really fun part of it is for like Chris and I is we'll go in and we each have like 3 or 4 people we're currently obsessed with.
Right.
And then invariably 1 or 2 of those people will be there, and then we help each other interact with that person.
Yes.
Like she was in love with Riz Ahmed for a while. So I started chatting him up on a red carpet solely to bring her into the fold.
That's very gracious of you.
I went too far, apparently. It's been later. This guy was
Really?
telling her how attracted she was to him. Later, in retrospect, I'm like, he probably was wondering, like, are these 2 swingers? Like, is he trying to, like, lay the foundation for him to watch or something? Like, I do think I was a little too above board about it.
Right.
Yeah. But I was trying my hardest.
Very sweet.
And then likewise, she's done the same thing for me one time with Lisa Bonet. She knew growing up that was my
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everyone's.
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah.
are good to each other.
She made it happen. She
I
really,
am impressed by your relationship.
It's a nod to her. Where did you just fly in from?
New York.
You did?
Yes.
So home.
Yes.
Where do you shoot the show?
Everywhere.
Everywhere, right. But is there one primary location you're at the most? No.
The first 3 years, we were mostly in North Carolina. We were in Charlotte, which was serving as DC. But even during those seasons, we were in Israel and we were in Morocco a fair amount, about a month, a pop. And then it became this international show. So in the 4th season, after Brody died, there was a big reset, and the show was placed in Afghanistan, and we filmed in Cape Town for 6 months. And then the following year, we were in Berlin for 6 months. And then the next year, we were in New York, which was...
Heaven for you, probably?
I thought it would be heaven, and in some ways it was harder because I suddenly had to do that job and also live my actual life to its fullest, which was really stressful.
Yeah.
I was much more easily able to compartmentalize up until that point. And then there was this integration, which I found really confronting. So surprise, surprise. Yeah, that was a little harder than I expected. But we were shooting in Brooklyn, and most of my friends live in Brooklyn now. I'm still in Manhattan. I'm like the last Manhattanite standing. And it was so nice because they would come and like mooch off the craft service or, just,
right.
It was a pit stop on their way back home from work.
But when you're playing her, it's not like when friends stop by and see me where I'm generally responsible for making some joke in the scene. And so me shooting the shit and entertaining them and making them laugh and then stepping over here and doing that is like...
Yeah, no, at that point, I guess we were in our 6th season. When have I not been making this show? I was pretty facile with her and was quite comfortable with going in and out of her. So it was a nice thing to find Sarah or Sunny, in Video Village when I wasn't expecting, like that was always welcome. Then the year after that, we were in Richmond. And then we were in Budapest for about a month and a half. And then this last season, the final season, we were in Morocco for almost 7 months. And then we ended here in LA for 2. So this season went on forever, I think, because it could.
Yeah.
So
in what
yeah.
of all those places, so I immediately have two thoughts. Which one was when I was younger and I did movies, I loved going somewhere else and having like a whole life there that was fun and almost to your point, very compartmentalized. You're in this little bubble and you're not super responsible for anything else. Now I would hate it because I have 2 little kids and I avoid that.
Right.
But of all those places, A, has it evolved traveling? And B, which was your favorite of those?
So I had our 2 kids while we were filming, over
They're
the course
5
of
or
the
6
show.
years apart?
Yes, that's right. So Cyrus, our eldest, turned 7 in late December. And
December what?
December 17th.
Oh, we have a
Mid.
19th.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
So you know all about that. And then Rowan, our second son, is almost 18 months now. Yeah, so there's like 5.5 years between the 2 of them. But we were figuring it all out, I mean, we had been married for a year when Homeland happened.
Yeah.
So it was a very steep learning curve. And that South African season was incredible because it's outrageously beautiful there. Cape Town is honestly one of the most gorgeous places I've ever been to. But Hugh took a job in Australia, and Cyrus was pretty little.
Really
he was
quick,
like
in your
a year
mind,
and
were you like,
change.
oh, that's close?
Yes.
Yeah,
I totally was.
Yeah, of
Southern
course.
Hemisphere.
That's
No
right.
problem.
Yeah, halfway there.
Yeah, no. 17 hours between the 2.
Oh, boy.
No, it was crazy.
Right.
So, no, it was a nightmare. Cyrus was really little, so we all went together. He was there with us for about a week, and then he left and was very far away for 5 weeks, came back for 2, then was very far away for another 5, and that was rough.
Yeah.
That was rough. That took us a long time to recover from.
Yeah.
And we learned that we can't do that again. But, I
Right.
mean, we learned the hard way. That was just brutal.
I don't know if you watched the Bill Gates documentary on Netflix.
No.
It's like 3-part. It's amazing.
I bet it is. That
Can't
sounds incredible.
recommend it enough.
Yeah.
But they're interviewing Melinda at one point, and she said, there just became this point where I'm sitting in this gigantic house by myself with our kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah,
I don't know what to
yeah.
tell you. I know you're running the biggest company in the
Yeah,
world,
yeah,
but
yeah.
this is a deal breaker for me.
Right.
And you got to figure this out. And to his credit, he did. He completely changed
Yeah.
his, role in the company and everything else.
Wow. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some people can. It seems doubtful, but just for me, I can't.
Yeah.
So actually, this last season, we really internalized that, and we were together the whole time. Rowan was 5 months when we arrived. Hugh ended up taking a role on the season.
Oh, that's helpful.
So that was really nice. It was kind of a coincidence. Yeah, I think that was probably the best one because we were together throughout.
Right.
I also love Berlin. Berlin is rad. I don't know, have you ever been?
I've not been. I've not been to
great.
either of those places.
Me
I'm
either.
embarrassed to admit.
How very dare you?
I
You should
know.
feel deep shame. It's pretty great. It's funny because the first place that I had been to that I thought, yeah, I could live here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like more than London, even where we share a language and where my husband is from. But it felt a lot like New York in the 80s, actually.
No
which is
kidding.
where I grew up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is where we're going. I was really curious. It's hard for me to imagine what a childhood in Manhattan is like. And my first thought is, are you ever turned loose in that city? Or can you be?
Yeah, it was interesting. So my parents had been artists. They met at Rhode Island School of Design. My mom was a textile designer out of school for 10 years. My dad was a photographer. And they moved to the Bowery at first. And then my dad's mom died when he was very young. So he had this inheritance money that he came into in his early 20s. And he used it to buy a building on Crosby Street with another couple, and they still own it today.
Oh, no kidding.
And that's where we grew up. But, you had to legally be an artist to live in Soho at the time.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
How would you prove that?
A lot of people lied.
I hope, yeah.
I think it was fairly easy to cheat. But that, it was the intention, that was the design. And the factories were actively closing down. And I remember our dining room chairs, which my mom eventually spray painted, were being kind of jettisoned from a factory on Crosby, and we were rolling them down the street, and I thought we were stealing them, and I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. But all of our furniture was found like that. You know, like our shelves were crates, and my dad collected old signs. But, you know, my cousins who lived in New Jersey, I was so covetous of their like cul-de-sac and their
their yard.
carpet and their basement with their video game. Like, that just
Riding
seemed
bicycles in the street.
heaven. So, yeah, but then when I became 10, it started to turn, and I thought, oh, I think this is cool. This might be cool. But like Basquiat lived in our building, and Keith Haring was around. I mean, yeah, it was really...
Where like you had met him?
Yeah, well, I remember him from the elevator when I was a little girl. And he
Right.
was very sweet.
He was.
He was very nice. We still have a hula hoop of it.
You have Basquiat's hula
Well,
hoop?
we did for a long
I'll give you
time.
$1,100
And we
for it.
he left like a drawing that we sold for a refrigerator.
Oh.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it was, and I remember there were limos everywhere for a while, and you didn't know if they were like drug dealers in there or
Sure.
art dealers, probably both.
The art scene in the 80s, and if that's what was populating all the, you know, your neighbors and everything, I mean, this is a very like bohemian, drug using. Were you aware of that on any level, or was it just
Well-
normal? This whole thing was normal.
Well, it was pretty. New York was still raw at that point. I mean, we were still actively recovering from the 70s when I think it was at one of its like blackest points.
Right.
But yeah, I remember being really scared and seeing some just nasty
Oh, yeah,
things.
yeah. My mom used to take us there. But yeah, we went in 82, 83, 84. And yeah, as soon as it was like the sun went down and you were walking through Times Square, like my mom was
it's
like
amazing that
squeezing
people
our
don't
hands.
remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like really ushering us through to
Yeah.
get back. It's such a different city. It's mind-blowing from the one I used to visit as a
Crazy.
kid.
It's crazy. I mean, it's very pleasant.
I love it.
You can get a
Yeah.
croissant anywhere at
Yeah.
any time.
Yeah.
Perfectly flaky. But like our parking lot is now the Crosby Hotel. It's just really funny.
Oh, wow.
And so when you had friends, were you allowed, at what age were you
Well,
allowed to like
Soho was
meet?
not a residential area. It's still not.
Okay.
But there was no grocery store. There was no park. But I still have friends from the neighborhood whose parents were also artists. And then my dad ended up being a contractor because then they had Asa, my older brother, who's 7 years older, and then they had me. And, you know, so he became a contractor. My mom ran a toddler school from our loft called Crosby Kids. So that was a very weird way to grow up. I mean, like Soho aside.
Yeah. Were
Yeah.
you jealous?
Yeah. So here's the thing. So my mom was the eldest of 5, and she was 4.5 years older than all the other kids who were then born in very quick succession, like a year apart. And she kind of recreated that dynamic, right?
Right.
And I obviously it was very different because I wasn't really responsible for these kids, but they were in my space.
Yeah.
They were there before I left for school, and they were there, you know, after I arrived back from school. And I know a lot of nursery rhymes, and I would tuck them all into their cots. And and my brother and I both learned recently that we both like would secretly drink apple juice from bottles because
That was designated for the kids?
yeah.
Yeah. Is that a way to get even?
Yeah.
Sure,
or just,
sure.
you know, to fuse with the kids that my mom was taking care of a little bit.
Yeah, I would have been really jealous that my mother's
It was hard.
attention was going to
It
other
was-
kids.
It was hard.
Yeah,
But-
it'd be like having 30 younger brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she didn't start it when you were of that age?
No, she started when I was 4. Like
She
the
did.
exact age that she was. I mean, look, my mom is truly an amazing mother. And I just think it's really interesting that it's like to the number, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I grew up in a...
Oh, I see. She
nursery
was
school.
more even trying to recreate what she had for you,
I think
not
so.
herself.
Well, both, I think.
Both.
I think
Okay.
both. I think
That is
both.
fascinating.
How long? For like your whole life?
Well, then I started acting. So I was 12 when I had an agent. I got an agent, but I had been acting a little bit before then.
And you did a Dudley Moore pilot at
I
13?
did. That was my
That's
first.
so great.
I was 12. That was my first job.
And now I'm a huge fan of Arthur. It's probably
Mm-hmm.
still in my top 3 comedies ever made. Did you have any awareness of
No.
who that man was?
I had no idea who Dudley Moore was.
Okay.
I also had no idea what comedy was.
Oh, sure.
None.
Yeah, were you guys watching a lot of TV in this house?
Yes, we were watching a lot of TV, and my parents were really not that careful about what we were
Consuming?
ingesting. I
Yeah.
mean, they exposed us to everything, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, they were careful in that they held art in obviously very high regard. And yeah, we were steeped in culture. We were living in New York and we were surrounded by these really wonderfully talented, eccentric characters and all that. But it's so fun because I was obsessed with all the John Hughes movies, obviously.
Sure.
Footloose was my favorite movie. I would watch that. That's not John Hughes, I know, but on a loop when I was 5, like over and over and over
I
and
gotta show
over
my
again.
girls that movie. That's a great idea.
Oh, it's so good. But my son, he's 7. He can barely watch
Right.
Spy Kids, the cartoon.
Yep.
It's just funny. Spy Kids, the cartoon is too provocative for him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So my grandfather, who I was his movie watching buddy, he took me to Scarface when I was 6 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Wall Street when I was 7 in the
Oh, there
theater,
you go.
or 8 or something.
Coke.
I remember seeing like Sophie's Choice when I was 9, and that was when I knew I needed to be an actor, or Accidental Tourist or something when I was little, or
Right.
like
Last Tango in Paris.
yes, like it just. And my parents were. I think it was a generational thing too. I think, as my mom says, Claire, it was the 70s.
Right,
It was
right.
the 70s.
And they grew up in the 50s, which was very repressive.
Yeah. Look, I'm really glad for it. I think ultimately I was much better for that approach than certainly the opposite one.
But did you ever crave, like, it feels like it always backfires, right? So if you've got like a very square household, the kids like just longing for some chaos and some color and some vibrance and
Yeah.
eccentricity. But if you grow up in that, do you crave like normalcy?
Yes, I was a structure fiend.
Yeah. So you did kind of crave a little bit, maybe more traditional,
Yes, but
where you didn't have a preschool in your living room.
yeah.
And Basquiat wasn't dope sick
yeah.
in the elevator. Sure, he left a hula hoop behind, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there were other
And
layers.
things. Yeah.
Do you think that you sought out acting because it was a niche that was yours, whereas you were sharing so much in your space with all these
That's
other
such
kids?
an interesting
and-
question. That's a really interesting
Maybe.
question. I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't.
big miss.
It was a good insight. But no, I had danced actually with this woman, Ellen Robbins, who now teaches my son, which is pretty cool. And people would come to her class looking for young talent, and I was pretty hammy, and I would get their attention and would often get cast in these super like avant-garde productions on the Lower East Side.
Sure.
And
Dealing with hot topics like abortion and
Sure. Yeah. And so I did a bit of that, with people on stilts around me, and loved it. And I just knew I wanted to do this thing. Like from the age of 5, I just knew, and I don't know why I knew, but I did. When people asked me what I wanted to do, I said I wanted to be an actor. And then somebody told me, I guess around the age of like 10 or 9 or something, that most actors actually didn't make that much money, which I found concerning.
yeah, well, sure. Yeah, Manhattan's a very expensive
It's
place to
a
live.
competitive environment. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I should rethink this. I thought, okay, I'm going to be a therapist, and I'm going to do acting workshops on the side.
Great.
And I was going to live next door to my best friend, Ariel, and we were going to have a joint pool, and then we would have slides in our respective yards that would go into said pool.
Oh,
Fun.
So yeah, it was
Did
going to
you do that?
It was going to be good.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
The odds of you making enough money as a psychologist are actually 1,000th as possible as an actor.
But what's amazing is that Ariel is still my best friend. Sadly, we don't live that proximate to each other that we can share a pool. And she's a therapist.
She is.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
All right, so Dudley Moore, just really quick.
Oh, right.
Having not seen Arthur,
Yeah.
he just was a short English gentleman.
Yes.
And was he?
He was very charming. He had a hard time remembering his lines.
Sure.
I don't
sure.
know if it's because he was very drunk. He wore lifts. He had a grand piano in his dressing room,
So cool.
and he played it all the time.
Really?
And he was very warm and
And imbibed.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I didn't know. But it was absurd.
Okay, so My So-Called Life. You were 13 when you got it?
I was 13 when I did the pilot. It did not get picked up.
Oh.
I went back to high school. I went to high school. And then like a month in to my first semester, they said, oh, wait, no, we are going to pick it up.
Oh, wow.
And then we shot 19 episodes and then it was canceled. So we didn't even get it to the end of that first season.
Which is kind of crazy considering how well-known that show is.
Yeah, because it reran. It had a few afterlives on different networks, but
It was the first Freaks and Geeks.
It kind of was. And then, but it was picked up by MTV, which played it on
I think
a
that's
loop.
where I saw it, probably.
And so it seemed like it went on for longer than it did.
So you were 14 when you shot this series?
Yes.
Okay, so you were 14 and you guys, who moved to Santa Monica? The whole gang?
Well, my brother was, as I said, was 7 years older, so he was in college at this point. He was at Oberlin. And
He was 21, Monica. Fast math.
And my dad's business happened to fold, and my mom was ready to do something else. So it kind of worked out well for our family. But we were so green. We didn't know what was going on. And we arrived literally the day after those massive earthquakes.
Yeah, the Northridge.
In 94. The Northridge earthquakes. Literally the day after, which was just too potent of a metaphor. So we've experienced all these aftershocks, and everybody was ashen. I mean, everybody was just traumatized.
Yeah.
And we were like, hi. So it was a strange way to arrive.
That's really bizarre because I, too, landed in Santa Barbara the day after.
Oh, really?
And even in Santa Barbara, I felt an aftershock that was quite significant.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of thought, oh, well, this is a little bit like the subway rumbling. And I remember my dad was really defiant. He would like sprawl out on the couch like he was going to take it on. And my mom and I were hovering under the, in the doorway or whatever, like we were told to.
Was there one of your two parents that you were more likely to bro out with?
They both did. They both put in way too many hours driving around with their maps.
Thomas Guide. Yeah.
My parents still are in Santa Monica.
Really?
They never left. So my mom went back to art school, to grad school, at a place called Otis in her 50s. And now it's amazing. They live in a little bungalow, but on a big plot of land. And my dad built their 2 studios, and they make art in the backyard, and they show together. And so it's like, it's full circle. And they have a yurt in the backyard where we stay. It's really fun.
Oh, really? Is it comfortable in the yurt?
It's great.
Oh, good.
It's so
Your son
great.
loves it.
Yes. He doesn't stay in the yurt. We stay in the yurt.
Okay.
He stays right next to Nan and Grandpa, and then crawls in the bed with him and gets to like do everything he's not supposed to do.
Oh, isn't that the greatest part of
Like,
Grandma and Grandpa?
Just watch all the videos and everything.
So that show, being very young, did you feel confident doing that, or did you feel overwhelmed, or what was the experience that young
Kind
shooting?
of both. It helped in some ways that I was as clueless as I was. But I also felt like, I had done a few movie of the weeks. I had done a lot of student films before that. So there's part of me that was like, I got this. And then there was part of me that was like, I do not got this, which is how I still feel to this day. And I was like being tutored on set. That was also really weird. Going back to high school and making sense of those two identities was stressful. I don't miss that.
Right. Is it true that you had your first real life kiss on that show, or is that not true?
That's not true.
Okay.
But it is true that it was a more involved kiss than I had ever had. And there were stage directions that said I was supposed to kiss Jordan Catalano's face. Like apart, like not his lips.
Okay.
And I didn't understand that.
I still don't as you say it. What does that mean?
His chin? Like what? And so Jared had to explain that to me,
And he was 21?
which was very embarrassing.
Well, yeah, I just want to talk about the real life dynamic of you being 14 and being 21. I think currently in the current climate, is that even allowed, a 21-year-old to make out with a 14-year-old?
I think so.
It's still cool?
I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't have a
think
position on it.
In
I'm
the
just
land
wondering.
of make-believe, yes.
I'm just trying to imagine, my daughter's getting into acting, and then, my first visit to set, I meet fucking Mike, who's 22 and has an apartment and stuff.
Yeah.
He's
I don't
really
know.
looking forward to making out with Delta today. And I'm very pro-sex and all, but just the age gap would really, I mean, you're talking 7 years.
Yeah.
Did you think he was the cutest person alive?
He was very attractive.
Oh, he's
He was in
objectively.
the Noxzema commercials at that point. Which
that was the high bar.
A big deal.
Oh, what's her
Big
name with
deal.
the curly hair was in them too?
Oh, I know who you're talking. Rebecca Gayheart.
Gayheart.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Boom. Yes, Rebecca Gayheart.
Yes.
I mean, I was in love with someone and from a commercial. Those were very high-end commercials.
They were high-end commercials, yeah.
Yeah, so if he was in a Noxzema,
Yeah.
that's the pinnacle.
Yeah.
So did you have a real-life crush on him, or was he too old?
No, he was way too old.
was
I
way
was
too
way
old.
too terrified.
Right.
It was very fraternal. And he was actually pretty protective of me. I think I made it clear too
Yeah.
from the beginning.
That this wasn't that kind of
That
party.
wasn't that kind of 14-year-old.
Right.
Yeah. But he took me to my first
You were the
club.
kind of 14-year-old that was 14.
I was truly 14.
Yeah. He took you to a nightclub, though?
He did.
God, I wanted to be the, what do you call it, room? Whiskey? No.
Viper room?
Yes, the Viper room. Was it the Viper
It was
room?
something like that.
Sure.
But I remember Leo was there and Steven Dorff was there and there was like a whole Leo Steven thing.
Oh, the whole gang.
Oh, and they were not.
There was a fight.
Like, well, no.
Okay.
It was he's at that table, he's at that table.
Okay.
I remember
Right.
that drama.
That is so fun. Yeah.
I remember that drama.
That is so great. So were you sad when it got canceled?
Yeah, but I felt kind of jerked around by the show because it had not gotten picked up and then it did get picked up
Yeah.
and then we were canceled before we even finished. I just was like,
And you have boundaries. You're like, look, I don't want to play this.
I don't know.
bullshit.
It was stressful. It was
Right.
stressful. My heart had been broken a couple of times. So
Right.
at that point I was a bit calloused, I think.
So did it help that you got nominated for an Emmy for that and a
Yeah.
Golden
I mean,
Globe?
all of that was just very surprising.
First job as a lead.
I
really?
was just so dizzy from it all.
And did both parents take you to the Emmys, or one or the other, or did you? Who was your
I
date?
don't remember who my date was. I remember going to the Oscars with my dad when I presented when I was like 17 or something, and Muhammad Ali was sitting in front of us, and he was my
Losing
dad
his
was
shit.
Wow.
very excited.
Yeah. How
So
could
I
he
remember
not be?
being pleased that I could give that to him. You know,
Yeah. So you got nominated, even though the show got canceled. Then all kinds of things start opening up, right? So what is Little Women first after
yeah,
that?
that was first. Yeah, so I did that straight after My So-Called Life. Yeah,
Have you seen the new one?
I haven't, and I really want to.
I heard it's
excited.
great.
I
I
know.
haven't seen it
I'm a
either.
big Greta Gerwig fan.
Me too.
Yeah, I was trying to imagine how I would feel about having been in a movie that was remade, and I feel like probably good.
You make Little Women, you assume it's gonna be remade. Yeah.
Like if the Star Wars cast was furious. What are you talking about a new Star Wars? You can't make a new one. I'm in my 50s.
This is my classic, bitch.
Yeah.
Hands off. This centuries-old masterpiece.
But the big thing, and certainly the first time I became abundantly aware of you, because I had not watched that show when it aired, was Romeo and Juliet. How do you end up getting that job? What were your thoughts as you were?
I auditioned a lot.
Did you know who Leonardo DiCaprio
Yes.
was?
Yeah, she saw him at the
Oh,
Viper
yes, at
room
at the
or
club.
wherever. Yeah.
No, I was a big Leo fan.
Okay, great. Starting with What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
I even before, like, what was before?
Oh, he
that?
was in the Tobias Wolff book.
It was This Boy's Life.
This Boy's Life. Tobias Wolff, yeah.
This Boy's Life, man. And like from that
Yes.
point on, Basketball Diaries.
Oh!
He was amazing in that.
Oh, he was unreal.
unreal in that. Yeah, I was mad impressed by his skills with a Z. Yeah, I guess I just remember auditioning a lot, and then finally auditioned with him, and it worked.
You kept your shit together.
Yeah, and Baz wanted to make as alive and fresh and accessible version of that story as he could tell, and my sensibility kind of suited that interpretation. And I think Leo and my acting styles were
Simpatico.
were
And you were
compatible
what?
enough.
You're 17 and he was 21. Is that?
I was 16 and he was 21. I turned 17 when we filmed.
Did you? I'm having a memory that was shot in Mexico City
It
or
was
something.
very good.
It
Yeah.
was.
Yes.
Okay, so to go to Mexico City,
Yeah.
and now you have like a hotel room and per
Uh-huh.
diem, and you're in a foreign city.
Creatively, I was just in heaven.
Yeah, you can also drink when you're 17 in Mexico. I'm not asking.
Yeah,
if you did
I
or
was
didn't,
not.
but-
I drank like twice on that movie.
Oh, really?
Because I was a kid. I didn't
Yeah.
really. I wasn't really practiced at this.
Okay.
Yeah, there was one time when I got too drunk.
Uh-huh. That's the goal in
and
Mexico.
Then I didn't get drunk again.
Okay.
I was a child, really. Like, I was not a drinker. But not to, I mean, a lot of people at that age are.
Well, I
so-
went to Cancun on spring break
Yeah.
at 16,
Yeah.
and I drank all the stuff.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it was really...
Yeah, no, I think I was too busy working, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to be a drinker.
I just want you to know, because I would hate for you to think that I only ask female guests. Male guests, too, I want to know so bad if they fell in love with the person they worked with. I would have fallen in love with him. I was so
Yeah, I think
smitten with him as
I-
an actor then.
I think it was crushy for sure.
Uh-huh.
But it was also a little bit like the Jared. Like that was just never gonna happen.
Okay,
it was just,
right. Yeah.
I didn't like with the drinking. Like I didn't know how to go about that.
Yeah, and he was already in the business for like 8 years.
He
so
was
he's
in the
probably
business
partying and having a good time.
And we're really different people.
Right.
I mean, I remember at one point he just was so frustrated and said, "How can you be so still?" And I said, "How can you be so active?" But like he is, as a very kind of frenetic energy, and I am not, that. I can be like really focused, and I guess on set especially like very centered.
Do people read that as you being not friendly or not?
I think they can. I think they can read it that way. I've never mean to communicate that.
Right.
And sometimes I worry about it being a lead actor, and I think I should be
Setting the tone.
more performative, or I mean, I think I probably do set the tone by default. That's just the tone I set.
Yeah.
But I think there is real value in having the number one call sheet person be more gregarious and
Like a morale captain.
yeah.
yeah.
And I don't know, I don't like naturally excel at that, but I really want to be in a healthy environment, and I want to be decent and expect decency around me and stuff. So I
Right.
think that is a good thing that can radiate, but
Yeah.
but I'm in some conflict about that. Like, oh God, I should be better at being.
The cheerleader?
Yeah.
Right. And when that movie, you must have been delighted with how it turned out, right? It
Yeah, I was.
Because
It was
what had
amazing.
Boz Lerman done before that? That was certainly the first
He
thing
did
I'd ever
Strictly
seen.
Ballroom, which was
Oh,
incredible.
right.
He is a real genius and an auteur, and has this kind of incredibly comprehensive, fantastic understanding of not only the story, but like
The world.
the world.
Yeah. He seems to be like a master of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's very operatic in his temperament and in his style as as a filmmaker. So
Had you mentally prepared for that movie, the results of the movie, not the process?
No, I had not. It was tough because I then suddenly famous, like for
right.
real.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to make of that.
You can't really practice for it.
No, no.
And it's awfully young to be famous. I would
Yeah,
think.
and I didn't have any reference point. I wasn't of it.
Mm-hmm.
My family just kind of stumbled into this culture, and we were all trying to make sense of it in real time, and I kind of couldn't keep up with the pace of it. And I was given a lot of opportunity really quickly, but was just unformed as a human.
Well, when I was that age, I would stare in the mirror before I went to high school, and I'd like be having a full-fledged panic attack about how my hair looked, and I wanted to cut it all off. And then I was really wrestling with just leaving the house
Sure.
without any attention.
Yeah, I think I was too. And I wasn't able to do a lot of socializing that you typically are forced to do, no matter how miserable it is in high school. And I think that was to my detriment. So that was really why I went back to college.
Well, really quick, your detriment in what way? You feel like you missed out like
I
some
was-
social training or something?
Yeah, and I had a really terrible time in middle school, which I think most girls do. But for whatever reason, I really struggled and was like really bullied by a certain kind of girl, archetypical girl, in 3 different schools. I think they were a little troubled, these girls, and I really don't know. I really don't know. But I really got smaller and smaller over the course of those years, and I developed a real phobia of girls, honestly. And it was really good for me to go back to college and realize that we all mature and we move through that heinous stage, and we feel, less wildly insecure and murderous about it. So yeah, I needed to to work through some of that.
Now, is it true that after that movie, I hope this is true, that you got offered Titanic?
I think I did.
Okay.
I'm not entirely clear on that.
Sure.
But I was like...
There was interest in you. How about that?
There's strong interest. But honestly, like, I just made this romantic epic with Leo in Mexico City, which
Right.
is where they were going to shout Titanic.
Right.
And I just didn't have it in me.
Right.
And I remember Leo and I shared a manager at the time. And we were there at the office. And I was on a balcony, which was funny.
With
And-
your arms spread wide open.
with wings on, which was super weird. No, and Leo had this like rental red convertible, some like hot roddy car.
Sure.
And he was kind of doing not like he was
Maybe
kind
some
of going in
donuts or
circles
something.
or like
Yeah.
in the
Hot dogging.
parking lot. And I knew he was wrestling with the decision to do that movie or not. And he just looked up at me and he said, "I'm doing it. I'm doing it."
After some donuts, he figured out.
Yeah, like he did some donuts and
To clear his head.
And I could see he wasn't sure, but he
Right.
was like, "Fuck it, I got to do this thing."
Yeah.
And I looked down on him, going like, "I totally understand why you are doing that."
Yeah.
And I'm not ready for that. And I think I really wasn't ready for it. And I remember after that movie came out, and he just went.
Oh my God.
Into another stratosphere.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to the premiere of The Man in the Iron Mask, and when he like walked into the room, like the floor fell in his direction. Like everybody in the room just went
Yeah.
towards him.
Yeah.
And it was a little scary, you
Yeah,
know? And
yeah.
I just thought, "Eey." I think I may have sensed that I was courting that, or I was proximate to, or it could, and I just couldn't do it.
So it was, yeah.
I didn't want it.
That's interesting. So, and now when the movie then gets made and it's the biggest movie of all time, do you have regret about it? Or you're like, no, I chose right.
Zero regret.
I envy that peace of mind.
I was just really clear about it. I wasn't
Right.
conflicted. I wasn't.
But were the people in your life
Maybe.
who are like managing your future
Maybe.
going like,
But I was just feeling eager to have different creative experiences. That felt like a repeat.
Right.
And as I said, I think it was going to propel me towards something that I knew I didn't have the resources to cope with. And I knew I had to do like a lot of foundation building.
That's crazy smart of you
very-
at 17 to have recognized that in yourself. Because if you're, as you said, imagining and dreaming about becoming an actor since you're 5 or 6, and it's like, well, that's the apex. You're about to go right to the apex of that Jim Cameron in this outrageous
Right.
movie. And then to have the self-knowledge to go like, no, that's not going to feel good. It's just kind of a crazy conviction for
Totally
a 17-year-old
is.
to have. I would have been Leo, man. I would have been fucking doing donuts in my red rental car.
You would not have been doing donuts. You would have said yes so quickly, immediately.
Well,
you would
no,
never have had to
I wouldn't
think
have
about
needed
it.
to even do the donuts,
Yeah.
but also I would have been doing donuts
Well,
in a
separately,
red
yeah.
rental car.
But
And
I also think that we kind of know what our line is. And I knew that this wasn't on my line.
that's good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
You didn't even go to high school, right? You were getting.
I was enrolled technically at a place called the Lycée Français here in LA, which was the only private school that would accept kid actors.
someone who never showed up.
Because in New York, it was sort of impressive and cool, but in LA, we were a dime a dozen and we were only annoying
Right.
and disruptive.
So was getting into Yale an issue, or was it easy?
I didn't do that well. I did fine on my SATs. I didn't get a score that would justify me going to Yale, but my extracurriculars were pretty impressive, and I wrote some good essays. But also, my grandfather was dean of art and architecture at Yale, and my dad grew up in New Haven, which was not why I got in, I don't think, but it was a nice
Couldn't have heard.
thing for me.
Did you talk about that in your interview?
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't.
I did not.
You're
not.
so ethical. You're like the person whose dad's a cop and you get pulled over and you don't mention it. Wow.
No, it wasn't ethical. But I
I would have
always
worn a
kind of knew I
t-shirt.
wanted to go there actually because of my grandfather.
I would have worn your grandpa's old sweatshirt that said Yale on it and been like, oh, just wearing my grandpa's old sweatshirt. He was the dean of arts.
Yeah, yeah.
You and I are so not alike. It's really fun for me to, because
I like
even in my, I know, yeah, of course.
fun.
I do too. But my projecting is just never, it's not landing anywhere. But
That's what I like.
did you also have some like crazy financial confidence? Because here's what I would have been. Because I'm sure you didn't pay shit for Romeo and Juliet. But I'm sure after that, they probably started throwing real money towards you when these offers came in. Did you not have a fear of financial insecurity? Like, I better just go grab that money right now to be
I was
set.
a child and I had so much money. Like,
Right,
how much
right,
more
right.
money could I possibly
That's true.
imagine?
Yeah.
Never mind want,
That's
like,
true.
Like,
Yeah, a couple
I
hundred
remember
grand.
Ariel and I, when we were 10, we would like think about money strictly in terms of like how much clothes we could get from the Gap with it. I
Right.
was still closer to that mind frame than,
So you're like, yeah, I could buy the whole Gap catalog several times over.
Exactly.
Then you'd been told actors don't make money, but then you just did
Yeah,
make money.
I made a lot.
So you probably
No,
felt
and
great.
You made more than a therapist did that
Way
year
more.
for sure.
Yes, yes. And money was just stupid. I mean, it was like Funhouse
Yeah.
style.
Okay, so you didn't feel like, oh God, I'm going to be
No, I
passing
didn't
up
feel
all
like
this
I was
money.
passing up money.
It must feel so good to feel like you.
Oh my God, I was so
No wonder you're not a crazy alcoholic like I was.
But I was really tiny.
Yeah.
I guess. I didn't feel tiny at the time, but I was. But it was awkward. I mean, it was definitely awkward. Like, I had bought a loft on Worcester Street and was remodeling it. There was nothing in it. But my dad had been a contractor, and so I had childhood friends, Joan and Harry, who have a firm together, an architectural firm, and they had worked with my dad professionally, and they had designed our loft. They had converted it into a nursery school home, and so I was building this loft with my kind of surrogate mom friend Joan, which all felt very natural,
Right.
but was nutty.
Yeah.
Because I was
Sure,
18. So I would take, like my architecture 101 class and then go home on the weekends to like oversee
Your loft.
my loft, the building of my loft. So it was, there were many shades of fucked up there too.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
Were many, many guys trying to court you?
Well, I was very deeply involved with a guy called Ben Lee. We were like,
He's since
we were
changed his
living
name.
together. No, he's still Ben Lee. He lives in LA now.
You said called.
Oh no, because he's Australian, and also my husband's English. So you say, he's not named Ben Lee; he's called Ben Lee. So I've appropriated that. It's affected and annoying, but it's
I got
just,
you.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
when you hear it from our American
I
ears,
know, it
forgive
sounds
us.
weird.
Where it's like, you used to be called
Yeah,
Ben.
I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Anyway, so I was like not going to college for that reason. I was there to learn.
Yeah.
I was nerdier than any kid in that school, which was ridiculous because there were a lot of nerds.
It really
but-
attracts nerds. We love Yale.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous.
We're
Yeah.
uniphiles.
Yeah, we're obsessed with fancy
I didn't
colleges.
finish. I went for 2 years, and so that's all I got.
Yeah.
But I feel like her 2 years at Yale's more impressive than our finishing
Combined.
college. Yeah.
Did you graduate?
Yeah.
Well, you win.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
What did you major in?
Well, I didn't have to major because I only went for 2 years.
But you were going to get psychology degree,
Well,
right?
I thought I
Therapist?
was, but then I realized that what I meant by psychology was in fact English because I was frustrated by psychology ultimately. It's also like a baby field.
Sure. It's only like
And
150 years old or something.
It was asserting itself as,
Empirical in some way?
yes,
Yeah.
as
That's
scientifically driven and oriented.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was true. I remember I took some class where abnormal psych or something, and we had to write an essay every week, and there was some controversial subject that we had to say was either good or bad. And every week I would say, well, the data is inconclusive. I just don't think we can say. And I would get penalized. I'd get punished for it. And I just thought, this is no. Like, we can manipulate these numbers any way we choose.
And do you know, I would imagine you know a ton about psychology at this point, first from having an interest in it as a kid and then also playing someone that's bipolar. But do you know the whole history of the DSM and how it came about?
No. Tell me.
Oh, my God.
Tell me.
So there, and I'll forget the name, but we'll say it in the fact check. There was an English guy who came to America specifically to expose how bad the state of psychiatry was in the U.S. And what he did is he deployed like 6 or 8 people, and they had to go into a clinic, and all they were allowed to say is, I hear the sound thump in my head. And then once they were admitted, they could only tell the truth. So the only lie was, I hear the sound thump in my head. And these were generally the people participating were other students and whatnot. And they got a myriad of diagnoses, right? Like schizophrenic, just a huge barrage of different, very, very serious mental health ailments. And then he published this, and the whole community, the American Psychology Association, whatever, they said, well, we need to do something about this, right? So they decided to come up with a standardized test, which became the DSM.
Okay.
And the DSM is a questionnaire that a computer can read and tell you basically what you have. But one of the fallouts of, like, say, the first DSM is if you give it to people, what you find is that probably 80% of the country has a mental illness. So their conclusion was either, well, mental illness is pandemic, or the DSM isn't really getting us what we want. And there's now been several iterations of the DSM, and I don't take a position on it. But it's a fascinating history. But there was one psychologist who really took umbrage with what this guy did, and he said, and I want to say, but I always say this, that he worked at Johns Hopkins, but he said, send me somebody, a fake, to the clinic, and I will tell you who the fake is. And he agreed to this, and they said, at some point in the next month, I'll send one in. And at the end of the month, Johns Hopkins guy said, it's this person. And he said, I didn't send anybody. So it was kind of like his double trick was to not even send anyone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's a fascinating documentary about it.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so you were like, this might be, we might be still early in this science before we.
A sophomore in undergrad. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I have a disproportionate number of therapist friends as well.
And I strongly believe in therapy.
I love the therapy.
Yeah.
I love it.
You started young, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, what age?
6.
6.
Oh, 6.
I am a New Yorker, so
Right, it's kind of
when
a
there was a
birthright,
problem, we went to therapy. I saw ghosts, and I think I was developing sort of OCD patterns. But there was a gargoyle who lived on our pipes in our loft and would make me do things like maintain a contorted position for 20 minutes at a time. And I couldn't take a shower alone because demons were coming out of the shower head, and it got pretty extreme.
That's a lot to juggle at that age.
And so my mom took me to Gideon, and he kind of helped me work through that.
Okay, so what's really interesting is when Monica suggested that you had maybe been drawn to acting because you wanted a thing of your own, I was wondering if you were drawn to acting because you have total control.
See, I don't know. I think that it doesn't come from a pathology. You know, I don't think it comes from like meeting a need that should have been met in life and that wasn't being met or something. I was just a really keen, close, avid, hungry observer. And I just really always was deeply, deeply interested in human beings. And I had no patience for cartoons when I was a kid. I didn't want to waste my time with an abstracted image. I wanted to look at actors in real space and time. You know? And I got really lost in those details. Honest to God, my first memory of acting was when I was about 3. I must have been 3. And I was at pre-nursery school, and there was an Indian American woman, Slow, who was our teacher, who I loved. And it was nap time, and I was always a really bad napper. I'm still a bad napper. But I was a very good girl. I'm still a very good girl. And so I was pretending to sleep, and I had remembered that my mom twitched in her sleep. And so I was doing that, and I remember thinking like, ooh, that was really subtle. That was really nuanced. There is no way Slow is going to think I'm anything other than dead asleep.
You just found the perfect speed for that twitch.
So that's still the same exercise. It's the same practice, the same impulse.
Yeah.
And it didn't come from a nervous place or a frightened place or a place of needing to assert control. It was just a natural impulse to mimic.
Right.
And I took real pleasure in the game of that. Sport isn't quite right because I think it's more expansive than that. But yeah, and beyond that, I don't know.
Now, was it a hard decision to leave Yale?
Kind of. I mean, I was going to do a movie that Jodie Foster was going to direct, like this circus movie, and I trained for a whole summer.
Doing circus tricks? What type?
Flying trapeze and the Spanish web. It was here in LA. There was this Mexican-American family that had been in the circus forever, and it was wonderful. And they had this whole setup in the backyard in the valley that was so hot.
Yeah.
And I got so into it and very strong, which was, not the point, but especially from the Spanish web, which was my favorite.
What's the Spanish web?
It's when you have these two pieces of cloth and you climb them, and then you tie knots, and then you kind of flip down. Wow.
One of Monica's best friend does this, Leandra.
That's like aerial.
Yes.
She does like aerial
Yeah,
stuff.
it's really, really, really fun. We did the wheel thing. It was pretty varied, very across the board, and it didn't end up happening. So I had taken a semester off to do that, and it fell apart. And so I raced back to school with these guns, these incredibly defined arms that just atrophied real fast. Yeah, so and it just kind of got more stop-start. I really thought that I would do a movie a summer, but I kind of failed to realize how much work goes into getting work, and I just wasn't available to read scripts or take meetings, and that was just very idealistic of me. And I sort of got what I needed from college. I met my best friends who were then graduating, because I had taken time off, and so I started to feel a little isolated.
Did you have any fear that the window was closing of your opportunity acting-wise?
Maybe a little bit at that point. I mean, I was 22, but I think it was more that, as I said, I kind of did all that socializing that I had missed out on when I was younger. I kind of learned the fundamentals of reading and writing. I could, I kind of learned enough how to think critically, and I had the tools that I needed to go forward. And I think I really went into school with the question of, am I acting out of habit or choice? Because this was a decision I had made a very long time ago when I was a child, and I just wanted to give myself an opportunity in a more neutral environment
to recommit to
just
Amish
recommit
lifestyle.
to it.
It was your Rumspringa.
It was my Rumspringa.
Yeah.
It was a little bit.
And then you were able to just jump back in pretty easily? Or
It was kind of awkward.
Uh-huh.
The first job I did was The Hours. I had a little role on that, which was kind of dreamy. I had a couple scenes with Meryl Streep. I did a movie that I actually still really like called Igby Goes Down.
Oh, yeah.
And then I made a very bad movie with Joaquin Phoenix and Sean Penn in Denmark and Sweden. An amazing director called Thomas Vinterberg, who had created Dogma with Lars von Trier. It was very exciting.
Yeah.
And it didn't work
Didn't
for
pan
various reasons. But I also I hadn't acted for 3 years. I was very schoolgirl at that point, and I forgot that acting was primarily a visceral,
more of a punk rock experience. Yeah.
And yes, you have to understand the story you're telling, and it does involve some analysis, but that's not the critical force at play.
Yeah.
And so I had to remember that.
Yeah.
And I had lost a lot of my confidence, which I had just had in abundance when I was a kid.
Right.
And I don't even know why, to the extent that I did, but I became self-conscious for the first time ever as an actor, which was weird. I was thinking way too hard about it all of a sudden.
And how long before you got your groove back?
I think that sort of curse was broken when I did Terminator 3 of all things.
Well, good, because that's one I really wanted to talk to you about. And I was like, is she not going to want to talk about T3? Because I'm going to want to.
Another actress was hired, and that didn't work out for whatever reason. I had auditioned, didn't get it. Then suddenly they called me and said, do you want to do it? And I had a night to make the decision. And I just thought, okay. And I really did love the other two Terminator movies, and was a fan of the franchise. I really was. But it was so immediate, and it was so out of it was just not a genre I'd ever worked within. But I remember thinking I was there to do a job, and I had to do the job well. I was hired because I could do the job well. And that released me from whatever overthinking I had fell victim to. And that loosened me way up.
Do you think part of it might have been that the machinery is so large in a movie like that it's almost distracting enough in a good way?
Yeah,
It's like you got to
maybe.
run here, you got to do this, that
And
thing's
there
going
was
to blow
no
up.
artistic pretense.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and it, like, I wasn't doing the next Dogma movie with the best actors of all time in
Yeah.
Scandinavia. Which was crippling. And I was so grateful to that movie for that.
Yeah.
I had a blast, literally and figuratively. I had a very bad haircut, but I had fun.
At the time it was being shot, it was the most expensive movie that had ever been made. Did you
I
know
did
that?
not know that.
Yes.
I did not know
That's
that.
incredible.
It was stupid. It was like going to Universal Studios every day.
That's
or
what I would
something.
imagine.
And also, you know, Arnold is in the cult of big, right? Everything on him and around him
Yes.
is oversized.
Yeah.
To a comic degree.
Yeah, he's driving up in a Hummer.
Like he would
he's
have different
humongous.
cars. He would bring different cars to set just to keep him company, you know. And there was a Mercedes tank at one point, you know, with the
Yeah,
where the Mercedes sign was the size of that window or something. And he wore a watch that was that big, and he like smoked these cigars, that
cigars,
were
yeah.
the size of that table, and like it was just absurd.
Yeah. Now, I would imagine, and again, I've been wrong almost this whole time. So, but I would imagine Temple Grandin is now like a seminal moment, right, in your career.
Yeah.
So, my first thought, and this again is so shallow of me, but do you probably don't. Do you have any commitment anxiety in general in life?
I don't know.
So my first thought was like, okay, if I were to sign on to a movie like that, I got to get to know this person. And then I would already be I'm going to have to break up with this person at some point. Like I'm going to have to befriend this person and then I'm going to move on to another movie. And I would already be fearing
That's
that
so
breakup.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's
kind of
I-
how my brain works.
I like your brain.
Yeah. I'm trying to head off any like hurting someone some point down the road.
Wow. Wow. That's
yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah.
No, that was not my fear.
Okay, good.
But I had the faintest sense of who she was when it came my way. I remember Hugh and I, we were in the second year of our relationship, and neither of us had been working that much, and we just thought, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just have a summer. Let's go traveling.
Yeah.
And we did, and we had the best time, and we started in Turkey and we wiggled our way throughout the Mediterranean, and it just got like more and more lavish as it went along, and you know, and we ended up at a film festival in Ischia, and it was just so bloated and much and excessive and amazing, and
Yeah.
we had no children, no thought of children, we weren't even married, you know. It was and I get this call about this project, which was a little sobering, and but it was just like so contradicted, this kind
Right.
of insane chapter that I had kind of found myself in. But yeah, so I read more about her, and she's just fascinating, and it was really scary, but she was just so much more interesting than I was terrified, you know. So like that tipped the scales, and I just thought, oh fuck, I have to do that.
And you had no fear, because another fear I would have had is
I
like
had plenty of fears. Plenty
Okay.
of fears.
So I was gonna say there were some pretty dramatic misfires with people taking on roles.
Oh my gosh. So I did the whole movie. I hadn't seen it, but I remember I watched Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was that parody,
yes,
Simple Jack.
that's right.
And I was like,
That's exactly where I'm
and
going
I remember,
with this.
I remember saying to Justin Theroux, because I was kind of friends with him, and I was like, oh my God, I think I just played Simple Jack.
Exactly.
But I mean, like, and it hadn't even occurred to me, like,
Right.
you know, until I saw the worst case scenario played out in
Yes.
one of the best satirical, you know, comedies of the decade. And oh God, and my heart just sank. I mean, of course, I didn't go into it with that, you know, but you also just feel like she's such a vulnerable human being, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she could be misinterpreted in so many ways, and you start to feel that anxiety and that vulnerability, you know, by extension. Yeah, and then you think like after the fact, like, does this look like I'm
hunting for an award? Yeah.
So no, I definitely had a flicker of
Okay, so you shot it and then saw Tropic Thunder.
yes.
Okay, now had you seen Tropic Thunder prior to
No.
it, do you think you would have done it?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
I mean, I guess it helps that you
But I had
you
to
met
be-
her and you.
I met her.
Yeah.
And I had two really good, well, the director was wonderful too, and the writer was wonderful. I mean, the team was great, but I also had Susan and Tamar. I mean, we worked really methodically towards breaking her down. I had a dream when I forget which came first. Was it the physicality or the voice? But anyway, I was more fluent in one part of her, and I had yet to integrate the other part, I think it was the vocal part. And I had a dream where I was walking out onto a stage as her, and as soon as I opened my mouth, I was really literal, like nothing came out. Like there was this awkward period where I had to fuse the two.
Yeah.
And I think I was like really reticent to even work through it in rehearsal. And finally, I just had to go for it on the first day of filming.
Yeah.
And it felt right. But I had a whole like check system.
Was she ever on set watching you
A little bit.
play
not,
her?
Not all that often, but yeah.
And what was her reaction to seeing you play her?
She recognized herself, which I was really, really grateful for. And that was also very motivating, right? Like, don't fuck this up. Like,
Yeah.
like the consequences would be pretty grave. I wanted her to feel like it matched with her sense of self. And I think that was the case.
And also, she seemed to have a ton of fun when you were winning awards and she was involved.
Yeah, although she's profoundly sensitive person, and on a red carpet, that's
A lot
like
of
a
stimulus.
nightmare scenario with the flashing lights and
Yeah.
people screaming. And so I just remember thinking like, get Temple, get her inside.
Yeah, let's get her
Yeah.
to the seat,
Yeah.
some popcorn,
Yes.
and then we'll
Yeah.
okay. We'll
But
get-
she has an amazing sense of humor, and she's a scientist, and she thinks of herself as material for people to break down and observe. And she is, giving of herself in that way.
right. Yeah, you won everything for that, right? As I recall,
I did. I won all the things.
Did you like winning those things?
I did. There was like a period where I won all the things for Temple, and then I won a lot of things for Homeland, which came pretty close after that. So it was like, oh my God, this again, which was very nice. But the gift of that is that you learn that it doesn't really matter, right?
Well, you still have to brush your teeth the next morning.
Yeah, but those things are super confusing, those award showy things. They are validating, and it feels really good to be celebrated by your community. But they're also this funny construct, and you're made to feel like an athlete or something. This is not why we are here doing this thing.
Right.
And there's so many of them now, right?
Yeah.
They had so many babies.
My
these award
wife's
shows.
currently at one.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just a whole other industry now.
Yeah.
And when I started, like, we didn't have stylists. You pretty much did your own hair and makeup.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's
Put on your best blouse and
yes,
hit the runway.
You go to Nordstrom and
You go to the Gap.
yeah,
You get
spend all your earnings.
your dream Gap outfit.
the cool lots. And
You buy
I
the
don't know.
merino wool
I don't mean
sweater.
to sound like a ingrate or anything, or
No,
like
but I
a
would
cranky
imagine-
old lady or something.
No. I would just imagine like that you love being, as you said, recognized for the work you did, and then that's validating. But then now there's this whole machinery of it that is going out, talking, doing interviews, being on a stage. There's like the publicity machine of the whole experience.
Which I've never been that naturally gifted at. But I had to say at that point, I had my partner Hugh. And so to move through all of that with him was a massive gift.
Is it easy for Hugh to be married to an actor who has pretty limitless opportunities?
I don't know how limitless they are.
Well, they're pretty,
I think maybe sometimes.
Here's an example. You got to go do Homeland wherever you got to do it. In my own life, there's been movies where, well, she can make this much, or we can stay here and I can make this much. So there's just a very clean cut, clear
Right.
financial yes or no, which
Yeah.
is like, well, it would make more sense for this family to go to Atlanta and watch her work than
Right.
to stay here and watch me work.
Right. I think we were really lucky in that Hugh did 2 really great series while I did Homeland, and that
Right.
worked out pretty well because, he did Hannibal for 3 years, and I did a show called The Path. So, we would really take turns. My hiatus was his, work schedule. So we both were feeling creatively satisfied. And really, we're not such actorly actors. That sounds a little silly to put it that way, but those identities really aren't at the fore when we're together. We both love it. We both take it really seriously, I guess. I mean, enough. I mean, we care deeply about it. We've committed our lives to it to a certain extent, but our friends are not necessarily in the business.
Yeah.
I think sometimes my being American and his being English is more of a thing that we kind of bump up against,
Sure.
or kind of go, oh, wow, right.
Well, again, another fear of mine is I find the English accent so charming. And then also I go would I wake up at year 3? Because when you fall in love
You
with someone.
stop hearing it.
You do.
It just becomes Hugh. It stops being English.
Oh, okay.
And it's really funny when other people, he's very handsome, and he has a fancy version of English accent even.
Oh, wow.
But it's embarrassing how much we are willing to concede to that kind of human. He can get away with anything.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of it's tempting to exploit.
Sure.
But we're really pathetic. It has a big power over us. But I remember that when I see him outside of the context of our relationship, and I see him in the world just melting all the human butter.
Yeah.
I'm like, ay, ay, ay.
Although,
Oy to the bay.
13 years into a relationship, my wife can shut a cupboard. And in my mind, I'm like, could she have possibly shut that cupboard more annoyingly? Did she workshop it when I was out of the room and then thought, oh, I'll really fuck with him while he's watching that thing? Aww. So I just imagine hearing aluminium when I'm in that state of mind and being like, oh, just cut the fucking shit. You live here. It's fucking aluminum. That's where I go to in my head.
He said something the other day that both was like, ding, it was just really not what he was supposed to say.
Sending his labs to the laboratory or something.
I forget what it was. And he actually asked that question. He was like, how annoying is it to you that I am this weird English guy? But I feel really bad because, our kids are American.
Right? Yeah. That would be weird for me to have English sons.
That's got to be hard.
Yeah.
I feel for him almost daily.
Yeah. So have you given thought to what's after Homeland? Do you need a 4-year break? Are you going to return to Yale? Or are we going to get that
finally get that
psychology
certificate?
Degree? They may have made it way more empirical since you were last there.
I'm sure they have.
Yeah, they're doing brain imaging.
It was
now
all psychology's fault. Let's be clear.
Yeah, the whole field failed you.
Failed me.
Yeah,
it was all wrong.
Because you've been on that show for 9 years, right?
For 8.
Oh,
But yes, it actually in total, it's more a decade. I feel like I'm supposed to know what I'm supposed to do next.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I am still so immersed in it. I haven't surfaced yet. I don't feel emancipated enough to sort of say, yeah, that's what I should do. I have no idea. But it's going to be awkward. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, which actually I'm kind of looking forward to. I mean, I'm not. It makes me want to vomit, but I should be scared again. It's hard not to work. It is. I feel like I'm in free fall a little bit.
Right.
I've had this alternate self that has helped define me, actually. And now she's gone. So it's disorienting.
You kind of already said it, but I just want to make sure I'm sure about it, which is you had friends visit and you were able to do it, year 6 or 7 or whatever that was. And I do remember, because I had never been on a series and my wife had been on a series, and I came home season 2 and I was like, I think I suck this year at this. And she's like, why? And I'm like, I just feel like I'm not trying or something. And she's like, no, that's TV. That's the beauty of it. It just keeps getting easier and easier and easier. You just, all of a sudden, it's just you.
Oh, it's the greatest. I love that because you've already lived your backstory. You don't have to make it up. You're not cheating.
Right.
You've earned the chance to just do it. I am going to miss that. And I'm really going to miss being part of a company.
Do you think, because you said earlier that you're a relationship person, this is a relationship, a 10-year long one.
Yeah.
So that's heartbreaking a little bit.
And I've never had a shot at monogamy as an actor before. That's a luxury that we're not typically afforded.
Yeah.
It is kind of amazing that you get to cycle through so many different realities and communities and selves. That is a joy. But there's also something like deeply grounding about working with a group of people who you have such a strong rapport with and a deep history with and a resilient trust with. I mean, it's something that we do need, right? The show definitely provided that for me, and I'm sad to have to leave that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever do another run that long.
Right.
And the quality of the material and the people who were involved, it was just really, really excellent, you know? And I was so spoiled. Like, and I never actually took that for granted, I have to say. I think I was old enough to know that it was special. But yeah, that was cool.
And I would imagine over the years that people who have bipolar have reached out to you. I have to imagine.
They have. They're very, I mean, look, we took a lot of liberties. We had to.
It's TV.
It's TV, and she's doing way too well. So I was always quite nervous about her condition being used
when it was convenient.
when it was convenient for the plot's sake, and I didn't want it to be, you know, just a gimmick. I don't think it was ultimately, but there's always a risk of that when you're telling us a yarn of this kind.
Yeah.
But I do think that we tried to be as responsible as we could within, you know, the barriers of the format, of the medium. And there just aren't that many representations of that condition anywhere in pop culture. And ultimately, she's a hero, you know?
Yeah.
So there is that positive association, which I think is really valuable.
Yeah, the more I have learned about that condition, the more
it's rough.
intrigued I am by
It's a
it.
hard
It's
one.
simply
Yeah.
that if I had that condition,
Yeah.
I know I would be one of the people that didn't take their medicine because I would want the wind up. I
Yeah.
would live for that.
Right. Well, you become addicted to the pathology,
That
to
heightened
the high.
state.
Mhm.
And,
Because for a while, you really are performing at
4 lines of coke, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you are truly productive and outpacing your peers. And a common trajectory is that you then get rewarded for that. And then you get promoted, or, you know, and you had this elevated status and more responsibility. And then you kind of capsize.
You crash.
And then it just becomes
Do you have a
intensely
sense
disorganized.
of how many people suffer from that in the country?
I think it's like 5%.
5%?
I think it's something like that. I don't know. I could be very wrong about
That's
that. but
15 million people
I think it's. I think it's.
in the 5% range.
I think that's right. I have so much respect for people who struggle with this because, you know, you just have to be so diligent and so disciplined to do basic stuff to get through a day, and we take so much for granted.
Yeah. Well, Claire, I love you. I'm in the group of people that is a gigantic fan of yours. You're so tremendous on that show. I'm very excited to see it. When does it come out? February? When is it?
9th. Thank you. I love you too.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to your attic.
Now, hopefully you'll come back with your whatever thing you end up choosing next.
Sure, I would love to.
Okay.
Okay.
And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman. Monica Padman.
Hi.
How you doing?
Oh, I thought there was going to be more. It seemed like there was going to be a little more.
Yeah, of course. It sounded like there was a statement that was going to follow, but there was. But I was really just thinking about the fact that we rode to the attic today, which is always a great start for my day. Just want to throw that out there.
Oh, that's nice.
And I do worry when you live across the street. I guess I could just walk over to your house and then walk you here.
Well, yeah, that might be a fun ritual.
Sure.
Also, we won't ever have to travel.
That's true.
We
We'll
can
live where we
walk-
were.
Yeah. We can walk from your house to the attic 3 steps.
So exciting.
Yeah. So, I mean, we should tell the armchairs because, I mean, not to like bring it down. I know they're going to be sad about this, but eventually our attic that we're in right now is going to get demolished.
It's going to be dust and ash. Yeah, but it's going to be a while. Do you know that part?
I hope.
We cannot get a permit for that thing I'm trying to build. It's just not happening.
Oh, great.
So, well, yeah, I mean, great for the mojo of this attic.
Yeah.
But bad for like, I need to exercise. And that's where my exercise equipment is supposed to go, this huge garage. There's no designated place in our new house
What
for it.
about
So
the gym? I mean, the
basement,
the
right?
gym. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I've been pushing Belle for. So in our current house, we have a basement. And that's where all my gear is, right?
Yeah, you have
My
gear.
get ripped gear. That's where the heavy things are that I lift up and set down.
Yeah.
So I said, look, hon, I know the basement of the new house is a theater room.
Yeah.
But it's going to probably have to be a gym for a year. She did not like that. She was like, put it in my office. I'm like, I can't fit all that crap in your office.
Oh, what about the gear?
Also, then you don't even have an office.
Oh, she's not thinking things through.
No, and I'm like, I can't go a year without working out. I'll commit suicide in the backyard.
Oh my God! Don't say that.
Oh my
okay?
God, by the way, can we talk about suicide?
Oh sure. I mean, I
No, this is
hate
going to
that
be a
topic.
weirdly encouraging take on suicide.
Oh goodness. Okay.
For real.
Okay.
As I get deeper into Gladwell's book, I want you to read it so bad.
I will.
This motherfucker.
I love him.
The things he tackles.
Yeah.
He's so fearless. So it's talking about, the famous poet. She killed herself.
Emily Dickinson.
No, but you're in the right world.
Emily Plickinson.
Plath?
Oh, Plath. Sylvia Plath.
Sylvia Plath. So she killed herself in England, and what she did was put her head in the oven and turned on the gas. And at that time, every single house in London burned a type of fuel called town gas,
Okay.
not natural gas that we now use. So town gas was this kind of dirty mix of all these different gases, but you could kill yourself quite easily with it. So when all of London had town gas, the number one killer of people was town gas, was people committing suicide with town gas because it was very easy to do. And so the traditional thinking on suicide was like, well, if you get rid of town gas, people just find another way to kill themselves. And that's what I thought going into this chapter. And that's called the displacement theory. That, okay, yeah, if you took away guns, then people would just use knives or whatever.
Right.
But the work of a certain sociologist or psychologist started investigating and realized that there's a strong coupling aspect to suicide. So it's not just that someone's on a warpath to kill themselves. It's that they have ideations, they think about it,
Yes.
and then the situation is right.
That's right.
And so what happened was when they switched over to natural gas, the suicide rate did dramatically drop.
Wow.
It didn't just move over to another method.
Yeah.
And then he goes into the folks who have jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, which I think is like 1,500 at this point. It's the most of any structure in the world. The most people have killed themselves. And there's always been these movements to put up barriers so people couldn't do it. But then the argument was, well, no, they'll just jump off something else. We're going to spend all these millions on these barriers, and they're just going to jump off something else. So why not put it into healthcare or something, or some prevention, which, again, I would have probably bought into that theory.
Right.
But what one of these people did is investigated of the, I want to say it was like maybe 500 people who had been interrupted in their attempt to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge over 70 years. A person went and interviewed all those people that had been interrupted, and only 25 of the 500 had ended up killing themselves.
Wow.
Yes. Isn't that so
my God.
interesting?
Suicide is one of the hardest topics for me. I get very anxious during that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
You know, I used to have, when I had a really bad anxiety, I used to feel like I was not suicidal, but I felt like all of a sudden I
You were
was
going
going
to
to have,
snap into.
I was just going to look down and I will have done it. Like it will have happened to me.
Yeah.
Which is not what happens, but
Right.
but I was so I had a lot of anxiety around suicide.
Yeah.
But I think that's really profound. And sorry, I mean, not to be political, but this.
Well,
gun-
20,000 people a year kill themselves with a handgun in the U.S. Now, look, I'm a gun owner. I just want to be dead honest about that. I own guns. I also, if there was a button on the wall I could push and there's no guns in America, I would push that button in 1 second. So
Yeah.
I have a very complicated relationship with it. I don't like them enough that I would want one kid in a school getting shot over my
Exactly.
loving of them.
Yeah.
Again, I know it's much deeper than that for people, and it's a constitutional right and all
Right.
this stuff. So I'm not even going to get into the weeds on that. I'm only going to say the data he gave is that it would appear that it would cut at least 10,000 deaths off
Wow.
a year off because this coupling mechanism is so strong. Just
It's amazing.
that's why I'm so drawn to everything he writes because
Yeah.
almost every chapter I enter with the exact mindset that most people have, and then it's
Yes.
like some opposite way of thinking about it that's substantiated with data. I love having my opinion changed. It's so fun.
It's so rare. Not for you in general in life. It's hard for people to do that.
Yeah, but
I'm giving you a compliment.
Oh, thank you. But I find it very euphoria inducing.
Yeah.
Like as I was driving home from work yesterday, listening to it, and I was just like all a
you
titter.
felt like a little baby.
A little baby boy in a toilet bowl of stew. Should we tell people that we think we might be having a baby?
Oh, sure.
I don't want to start the rumor mill, but I used Monica's toilet at her new house, which is a non-functioning house. And what I did is I flushed the toilet and it flushed properly. And I was like, oh, the water's still on. Great.
Yeah.
Then I whizzed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I hit the flusher again. Oopsies.
Oopsies.
No water in there.
No.
So then I came to you and I was like, I've peed in your commode and I'm going to have to bring over a 5-gallon bucket of water and flush this thing.
Yes.
You're like, yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
And then you were there like a couple days after.
Yeah.
And you were going to pee your pants.
Yep.
And so you peed on top of my
I
pee.
did. I didn't want to put pee in another toilet because that would just be multiple things we'd have to figure out. So I peed on top of your pee, and it's all still there. This is weeks ago.
Oh, Jesus.
And-
I'm so embarrassed for us.
And we think that maybe the mixture of the pee,
A life will grow out
we
of
don't
that.
know.
We don't
just
know.
don't know. Maybe Malcolm Gladwell could weigh in on how many broth babies there have been.
Historically, how many broth babies there are. I think this would be so exciting, though, if we went over there and took. Well, we went over there with the 5-gallon water bucket, and then we heard, Mama, Dad. And there was a little yellow baby down there.
I would really love it. I
Me
would
too.
take care of it.
Of course we would. Or a little urine baby.
Yeah, it would probably need to like live in that toilet.
It might need to live in that toilet. You're right. And it would be jaundice. So,
Well, for sure.
okay.
Extremely jaundiced.
Okay.
Anywho, okay, Claire.
Claire.
So the TV movie that Kristen was
Oh,
in.
yes. We got the name of it.
Yeah, I got the name of it. The TV movie that Kristen was in with Claire was called Polish Wedding. And she had braces in it. But in the still that she showed me, her mouth is closed.
Do you think that was a racist thing where they were like, all Polish people wear braces? Everyone in this movie has to have braces.
They have bad teeth. They spend all their money on braces. That's a stereotype. We all
So
know.
Kristen had braces in real life, or she had like prosthetic braces?
Oh,
Or Claire had
good
braces?
question. No, Claire didn't. Kristen did. She said I had braces.
Oh.
But maybe you're right. Maybe that was the character had braces. Because did Kristen have braces? Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think she did.
I want to say she had them for like a week.
Okay, well that
She's
does
one of those
nothing.
people. No, like they were almost perfect.
No,
she just needed a week.
I don't buy any of that. No.
Well, they went to the orthodontist, and he goes, "I can have this fixed by Sunday. I'm going to
She-
put these braces on you. I'm going to take them off Sunday, and you're going to have a beautiful smile."
I would ask Google, but instead I'm going to ask Kristen's mom.
Okay.
We have a quick question.
Quick question.
Did Kristen have braces in life?
And for how long?
And if so, for how long? Was it over a week? We'll see if she responds. I think she's at work, but
We should open up a orthodontia clinic that's called 1 Week Orthodontia.
whether we could be a huge scam.
I know, but think how much business we would do in that first few weeks before people got wise to it.
Your morals. Oh my God. Like the thing you sent me last night.
Oh my God, I have the greatest idea. You think I can't even say it?
You have to make it very clear you're kidding.
Okay, so I'm definitely joking. I have no plans to really do this, but we're watching the morning show.
Yep.
And I'm guessing it's loosely based on Matt Lauer.
Correct. Maybe they haven't said that explicitly, but I would say yes.
Okay, so it appears to be kind of based on Matt Lauer. And of all of his indiscretions, there's no arguing the guy was incredibly good at that job, right? Yeah. And Bill O'Reilly, even though I never watched the show and my politics are opposite, tremendous at that job. He was #1 in the ratings for every year he was on network. So anyways, I was starting about launching a network called Canceled Network or Canceled TV. And it's just all these guys that have been canceled. And, I think people in public would be like, I hate that person. But then at home, they would probably watch it because they would think no one's looking at them.
Maybe.
It was really an exploration of the difference between your public and private life.
Sure. And that's a joke.
That's a big joke.
But yeah.
But I do think it would be very successful.
No.
I'm not saying I want it to be successful. I think it would be very successful.
I really don't.
You don't?
No, I don't. I mean, I think they'd have a percentage of people who would like it. But do I think it'd be popular? No.
And then you came over the top, really, because I was saying Lauer and Bill O'Reilly, which I don't think either was accused ever of forcing anyone against their will. Rampant abuses of power, but I don't think there's any rape allegations, right? But then you came over the top and said you could have Weinstein do like a movie of the week too. It'd probably be great.
I know. I said Weinstein. Yeah.
But that one, he's a.
Well, I had a feeling. So actually, that's why I said it. I was wondering what you were going to say. You didn't respond to me for the rest of the night.
Oh no.
But
I was caught up in the show you've told me to watch.
But I wondered what your response was going to be because I thought maybe you were going to say something like that, like that's not the same thing. But it's close to the same. It's the same thing.
You're right. You're
It's the
right.
same
It is.
thing.
It is. You're right. It's the same thing, and there's a gradient.
Yeah, there is, but
it
I
doesn't
always
matter?
say, I know, because I'm always saying that, and
Yeah.
the more I'm like watching some of this, actually, I finished the morning show last night.
Okay.
And Steve Carell, God, I love
Your
him
undies were really
so much.
in a mess. That's what Mom said about you last night. She said, "Oh my God, Monica had to change your pants 5 times over how good Steve Carell was."
Yeah. Everyone's jealous of Steve Carell because I talk about him all the time.
He's the new Gene Cordell.
Yeah, but anyway, Steve Carell's so good. But I'm watching this whole thing, and I'm just like, yeah, it's horrible. These abuses of power and the chain of power.
Yeah.
And it's really bad. And sure, so technically he didn't rape anyone.
I'm only drawing a distinction between consensual sex and non-consensual
I
sex.
know, but I think the line is a little more blurry than...
People have traditionally given it credit.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this because I'm listening to Catch and Kill, Ronan's podcast,
are.
which is really good, and I'm reading his book as well, which is also really, really good. And yeah, when you start hearing the accounts from a lot of the people, like Rose McGowan's account, all of this, like, she's being touched out of nowhere, right?
Right.
And so it's just like you're catching up. Your brain is
Yes.
trying to catch up to what's going on, and then it's evaluating all the ramifications, career and or otherwise. And so by the time you could even launch maybe a game plan, you're pretty deep into an assault.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I definitely underestimate how much of what could have appeared to look like consent
Exactly.
isn't.
Exactly.
Which is another great chapter of Malcolm's book.
Oh,
is
really?
the complexities of consent. He's like, number one of the biggest challenges is how can you even educate people in college about consent when there's no consensus on what consent is? Is it nodding yes? Is it removing your own clothes? Like he starts polling all these people on what thing constitutes consent, and there's just no consensus around that.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't even really know what marching orders to give everyone.
It's true.
It's such a complicated topic.
Oh, yeah. Oof. Oof, Okay.
P baby, P baby, P baby. What are we gonna name her, P baby?
Consent.
I think we should name him or her P baby.
She
Are you hungry, P baby?
She might not like that
Well, she won't know that.
because her
She'll
ears
assume
won't
every.
work because
Well,
they'll be clogged.
likely not, but also she'll just assume that everyone was born in a toilet.
Oh, that's nice for her.
Yeah.
Although a pee baby, could have both parts.
Oh.
Maybe, which would be cute.
Yeah, a little dinger and a little doo doo, a little dee dee and a little doo doo.
A hermaphrodite?
Yeah, hermaphrodite. I learned in anthro, there's really only been, I think, 1 or 2 in history.
Really?
Yeah, because part of the definition is that both sex organs have to function. So quite often, like you'll see There's all kinds of things that could happen in the womb during the development where something was interrupted, but then it came back online. So you can have women with a vagina that appears almost to have like a penis on top where the clitoris is, but it's not really. But there's been some cases that were filed as hermaphrodite, but they're not. They don't have functioning sex organs.
This says there's approximately 700 worldwide.
I don't believe that.
Characterized by the presence of both ovarian and testicular tissues.
Tissues.
Or one or both gonads.
Okay, but all right. So I think at least in my anthro class, they had to be functioning, not just present.
Yeah, they call this true hermaphroditism.
Okay.
All right.
Well, look at this.
700.
I just claimed I love being my mind changed. So thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as fun when you do it as when
Sorry.
Malcolm.
I'll put some music underneath it. So.
Please.
So she said,
Claire, now we're talking about?
yeah, back to Claire, not P Baby.
Okay.
Okay, back to Claire. So Soho, at some point, you were required to be an artist.
Oh, yeah. I didn't want to make her eat up her time explaining the history of that to me, but I was like, I didn't know that. Did
I
you
know.
that?
I had no idea. It says the artist in residence zoning law was passed in 1971 to allow for the conversion of 200 commercial lofts to residential use on the condition that each loft contained a certified artist. Soho and NoHo were essentially zoned for, quote, joint living working spaces so that these properties would be off limits to any non-certified artists. For years, the law was widely ignored as agencies like the Department of Buildings concentrated their efforts on matters more pressing than carving out affordable spaces for artists to live.
How does one become certified as an artist, I wonder?
I know.
And why aren't I certified? Should we
Good
explore
question.
this?
Yeah, we should figure out the process.
'Cause I want to get some dirt cheap square footage in Manhattan.
Yeah, in Soho. Soho's awesome.
Yeah.
If I was living in New York, I'd probably want to live there.
You would. I'd live in the West Village.
Or the West Village. Yeah, it's hard to pick. One or the other.
All the good burgers are over there in the West Village.
I'm hungry.
Corner Bistro.
No, but Emily's is in Brooklyn.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's an Emily's
In the West Village.
in the West Village.
But it's not our
It's
burger.
not our Emily's.
It's not.
It's beautiful.
It's the same
beautiful.
Emily's, and all the burgers are a little bit different in each location. So ours was Brooklyn.
We'll eat there again. Maybe we'll bring our
hope
pea baby
so.
there.
Traveling with her is going to be hard, I will say.
Is Kristen going to
okay?
be her grandma or her mom? Like,
well, no, she won't be her mom because
Well,
her
in that
P's
she's
not
her-
in there. I guess she'd be a stepmom.
that doesn't feel super complimentary, though, does it?
Well, I mean, I don't know what to say. That's just the truth of the world, okay?
I
Her
know.
pee is not in there.
Okay.
But I'm not convinced that she won't go pee in there before our baby's made.
Well, if it can sing really well, we'll know.
Yeah. Okay, so her mom, her mom had a daycare, and that just reminded me, my hot grandma had a daycare.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, would I have loved to have been one of the dads dropping the pee-pee baby off and then chatting up your grandma.
Unfortunately,
your
there
gaga.
were no pee-pee babies there. But I would spend summers, with them. And so I was always around all these little kids. And I was really jealous.
You were?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't
Of
like
your
that.
grandma's attention?
Yeah, and then when my mom would come, sometimes I'd spend the whole summer, but my mom would be there for a week or two.
Uh-huh.
And then my mom would play with some of these kids, and I did not like that.
You didn't?
No. And then my aunt would sometimes come in and also be nice, read us both a story. And I was like, no.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That's my aunt.
Yeah. Do you think that's from being an only child for 8 years?
Yeah.
Probably.
I wanted a sibling so bad.
Do you think you're going to have a strong streak of jealousy in your next relationship?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Maybe, though.
No. I mean, I'll try not to. I'll have to work on it. I'm serious.
I know. I was just curious.
How do I know? I can't predict that.
No, but you have a hunch, maybe, based on the babies playing with grandma and your...
Well, okay, look, people evolve, okay? I'm not...
I do just think, though, when you're born second, you're just... Your whole worldview is you got to share mom
Sure.
with this kid. It's just you're forced to practice sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. In defining love, not including exclusivity.
Exactly. That's true. That's
it's
true.
it's no one's fault if you're born. I would say my brother is much more like you, just because he too had 5 years without me.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess if I feel safe by the person, I probably won't feel jealous.
Right.
But I probably didn't feel safe with my mom.
or
Just
your
kidding.
beautiful Gaga.
I'm kidding.
It's.
I'm
I feel
kidding.
like it's
felt
off
so
brand
safe.
for your hot Gaga to have had a daycare.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well, why?
because I'm going to all the stereotypical Indian immigrant stuff.
Oh.
And I think like engineering, medical, all
Not
these different
for-
things.
no,
Dairy Queen.
No. Oy. No.
I never think childcare.
Not my grandma's age. Women were not doing that. Women were housewives.
Right, or housewives.
Yeah, she was a housewife, but then also ran a daycare.
Oh, okay. Was it profitable?
I don't know how much she charged.
They made a good living though, right? They saved a bunch of money. And
Oh, they were very frugal. They didn't spend any money. Like she made all my mom and sister's clothes. But yeah, my grandfather was a professor, so yeah, they had money,
right.
and then they gave me all of it.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Just
Swindled
kidding.
it.
Just kidding. Okay, so so she was talking about the guy in My So-Called Life who was in a Noxema commercial. So Jared Leto, who is in the Noxema commercial, but he was actually in the commercial you liked with Rebecca Gayheart. He was her love interest.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I-
Yep.
I can't think of any accolade that would more prove that you are the most beautiful couple in the world than to have a Noxema campaign.
I agree.
Wow.
I
The
know.
skin of angels.
Oh boy.
Woo.
Okay, was Titanic the biggest movie of all time when it came out? It set the record for highest domestic grossing movie ever from its debut in December 1997 to close in October 1998, making more than $650 million.
Just domestically.
Yeah. You said psychology is 150 years old. The late 19th century marked the start of psychology as a scientific enterprise. Psychology as a self-conscious field of experimental study began in 1879.
Wow, I almost nailed it to the dot.
Do you want to do exact math?
It's 141 years.
Wow. Great job.
So it's 9 years off.
Yeah. Really close.
Hey, Google, what is 9 divided by 141?
The answer is approximately 0.06383.
0. Yeah, so I was less than 1% off. By the way, there is nothing cuter than Google in your chair. It makes me smile
I know.
so much every time I walk in. She has her own microphone, right?
She is really cute.
I feel like she has
She's
a-
cuter than the P baby.
Don't you think she's in love with that microphone? Because they look almost the same.
Yeah.
They're like clearly of the same species.
Yeah, it's nice.
Oh, wow.
Okay, the DSM history that you give,
Yeah.
I can't find anything on that. And then I checked with Wendy. And
Mogul?
She said a lot of stuff about the DSM. And you're right that it's like
Controversy.
correct. But she doesn't know anything about the thump, although she was like, I kind of remember hearing something like that. And I said, I think you may have heard it on our show.
Oh, no. There's a I could bring it up on YouTube
Bring it
right
up,
now.
yeah.
Yep. I've watched it 3 or 4 times. Englishman who tricked psychologists. Let me see if it pops up. If it doesn't pop up, I'm going to move on. It didn't pop up, so let's move on.
Okay, so you'll find it and we'll put it on the yearly fact check.
Oh, jeez.
No, we'll talk about it
We'll
next
revisit
week.
it, yeah.
Okay, so the percentage of bipolar in the U.S. Bipolar disorder is a neurobiological brain disorder that affects approximately 2.3 million Americans today, or almost 1% of the population. Her estimate was a little higher, but she
Okay.
said, I don't really know for sure.
Right. Then we always get into this, you and I. It's always like, is that people who have already acknowledged they are? Or it's
yeah.
hard to know in that figure. Is it a speculation? An
I think that this is
extrapolation?
people who are diagnosed, I would guess.
Yes, there's going to be a lot. Then you go like, oh, there must be a ton of undiagnosed people.
Sure,
right?
but there's no way to do any
We can't
statistics
do it.
on that. We just
No.
can't do it.
We don't have the tech.
Unfortunately, we do have a good piece of tech in here.
We do.
But we don't have all the tech. Hey, Google, how many pea babies exist in the world?
Oh, great question.
Sorry, I can't help with that yet.
Well, eventually she'll get to say one when ours is born. We'll get back to you, Google.
Okay. We'll tell you first if we have the first example of one. All right.
right.
I love you.
Bye. Love you.